how difficult does it make it to practice when you have 7 guys out?
Not as bad at this time of year just because we're going half speed anyways on Wednesdays regardless. If this was earlier in the year, we'd probably have to go half speed just by default.
And it obviously helps with a couple of years ago adding the 16.
Oh, it's everything. Yeah, that's helped in so many ways. So it's been crucial.
Kyle, you obviously don't want Lenoir to get kicked out of games, but he is notably like feistier, I guess, this season in a good way. Does that come with confidence, just growing up in this league, or what are your impressions?
Just knowing Demo's history, I think he's always, just how he was in college and what we had him on him coming out, he's always been a pretty feisty guy. But I think the more in this league you learn to play with an edge, whatever that edge is, you need something, and he's found that. A lot of guys do it that way. Some guys do it separate ways, but you got to have an edge in this league to kind of get you over the top. And Demo's found a good way of doing that because he's playing at a higher level each and every year. But that's a line you can't cross. That's something our team takes a lot of pride in. Our team, we feel we are as physical as you can be, but we don't think that's something we ever do. So that was disappointing with him. He knew it. Our team knows it. But that's never the goal. If you get a penalty, you're wrong. If you get ejected, you're twice as wrong.
How did he reach out to you?
What's that?
When he apologized, how did he reach out to you?
How they all do. Text. Yeah.
You didn't get him on FaceTime after you got the text?
No, that's usually what I do to them, and sometimes they don't answer. But they'll call back and just be like, I have bad service, or text back. I do it to my kids sometimes, and they're like, what the hell is this? We don't look at each other. We text.
You mentioned recently that Christian McCaffrey is the best player without the ball in his hands that you've ever coached. How would you assess Deebo standing on that department?
I think he's getting there. I'm not giving him the best ever. But Deebo's such a big fact. First of all, to be that good without the ball, everyone's got to be concerned with you. So people are concerned with Deebo all the time. That's why we're constantly stressing to him the importance of doing stuff on the backside because people will watch him hard. I think Deebo has struggled with it when he's been banged up. Anytime you can't practice and stuff, it's hard to do that, play in and play out. That's what I love, when you can string together some weeks, stay healthy, be able to continue practicing, which he's done here for about a month, and now he's a big effect without the ball.
You said one of the favorite passes you saw out of Brock was the check down to Deebo, but he also had a pass where he rolled to the left and shot it over to Ayuk down the side. What makes him so proficient and able to move to his left and make that throw?
I think he knows where he's going with the ball. And then sometimes when color flashes and you don't have time to wait for that to show, you got to take your eyes off the look and find a way to buy time. And once he does buy time, he already saw where to go. So then he goes to a spot, and now the timing's a little bit off, so he did a great job of fading him away. Because you want to catch that about 20 yards, and Brock was late to it because he had to be, but it was the right spot to go, and then he had to fade him to turn it in about 30-something. And that was so huge by Chris Conley, just continuing to run down the field. It was a 3-level throw where they're separate from each other. But because Brock broke, Ayuk had to go deeper, and Conley was still so deep, so we still got those 3 levels and worked out good.
He mentioned the one throw he made, I think it was to Deebo, where he noticed that the safety was flat-footed. Like, how next level is that? At what point in a quarterback's NFL development is he not just looking at a blurry picture and he can actually see a guy's feet?
I think that's stuff that he does I think that's the talent in Brock that you can't always judge. Like, I think vision and stuff is very important and doesn't just go into, like, is he 20/20? Like, there's different types of vision of, like, looking outside wide, coming in, like, just the words I never know. But it's a big deal how your eyes see things, and I think Brock recognizes stuff and the speed of things and levels, and he knows the hole and the defenders and what they should defend, but it's always there's a progression. It's like, yeah, this play is going to go to here, but that guy might not do his job. And so you got to feel that. Make sure if he does his job, we're going to number 2. That's what he usually does. And Brock went to number 1, which hadn't been there on tape, but he wasn't backing up, and we had a fast guy in the slot, and you better back up. And he hesitated a little bit, and Brock saw that, and so he doesn't memorize and guess. He kind of sees it and reacts, and that's the coolest thing about him.
You're talking about the defensive guy, like, you draw it up, and, hey, if the defense has played soundly, this is what this guy should do, but there are times where it makes it more difficult on the offense because the defense isn't doing.
That's how everything. There's always progression, but you might call a play where this guy's number one in the progression, but the coverage that they play, he's never open. So you should see he's covered, and that means number two is open. But if you get that coverage and you just go right to number two, and he's covered, you can't go back to number one. So you got to verify things, and so you find. I mean, if I got in there and played quarterback, I wouldn't know anything that's going on. I'd memorize coverages, and I would try to program before and be like, all right, I think it's this. Let me go to number three, and then you get fooled. And once you try to come back to number one, you're throwing picks or getting sacked. So it's knowing what's going on, but also still playing the game and trying not to get overwhelmed with coach talk or a film and all that. You got to be in a pocket and read things and react, and that's why it's really tough to play the position.
He said on the radio yesterday that he talked to Nick Mullins, and Mullins told him that his arm might not be fully normal again until halfway through the season, and Brock said that indeed happened. Can you see that on film with his throwing?
Yeah, I think just like it's not like you can't. It's not that you can see it on film. It's not like, wow, it's got a lot more zip. He's throwing a lot farther. I think it's about being in shape. And like when receivers go like a month without catching a football, they come back and they drop balls. And it's not because their hands aren't in shape, it's because their eyes aren't. They're not used to running full speed and tracking things that fast. And so they just don't see it as well. If a quarterback's not throwing in the offseason, he can still, I mean, they're born to throw, and he throws it right, and he can, once he was cleared, he was throwing it normal. But it's not in true shape. He's not just doing it day in and day out and putting all those reps in. That's why sometimes guys get hurt and they can't throw for a few weeks, and they come back, they still have their arm strength, but it's just not consistent. And I think Brock, his consistency's there. I think trying to get his arm back in shape and building up and ramping all that up with just the number of throws and stuff eventually catches up to you. And I think that's why that week off, he just didn't do anything. I remember him coming back after the week off, and he was rusty that Monday, just didn't throw it that great. But by the end of that Thursday, I thought he was throwing it better than he had all year, which means it's just part of getting in shape. We know how he can throw. But when you take a whole off season off, the conditioning is not quite there. Doesn't mean his arm's not, but just the consistency over all the throws has changed, and I think it's back.
Kyle, what ways do the Cardinals look different than when you saw them earlier in the season?
They're doing the exact same stuff. They're just better at everything. I got a lot of respect of how they've done this year. I thought they were real tough at the beginning of the year. I thought we had to play flawless on offense to beat them, but that was a real tight game. And since then, they have how many ever games it is, 9 more games of reps. They're playing very hard. They're playing together. They've added some really good players, especially Buddha, who they didn't have. I think they've always been real talented on special teams. They've also gotten a very great, talented quarterback back. So, and they remind me of a lot of us our first year, where we started out 0-9 and finished 6-10. I think everything they're doing is the right way, and I think they're a real tough football team.
They use a lot of the same defensive principles you did to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket for Kyler Murray, or are they different?
They're different. I mean, he's still a huge threat to run every time, but there's a little different style in how they play and stuff. So, but he is a problem. Anyway, we all know how fast and quick he is, and if you give him, no matter what you do in coverage, if you give him those open gaps, he's going to get 15 faster than anybody.
Brock is very much in the MVP conversation, but when you have someone like Christian on the team, how hard is it to decipher that? What are your thoughts on that?
You're trying to get me in trouble with those two guys? That's the only reason I wouldn't overly comment on either one of them, because I don't want them to cancel each other out. But if any non-quarterback's going to get an MVP, I don't get how Christian McCaffrey can't. I mean, he's amazing in what he's done all year. If it's going to a quarterback, then I don't have to talk about Christian. I can talk about our quarterback, and I'm still, if his numbers is all you see, then I think that solves it up. But if you watch the film, then it makes it even stronger, which to me is the most important thing.
If you, more than one occasion, we've seen Brock drop back and kind of use lefty footwork, kind of drop and then flip the hips and back to his throwing side. Is that, I would imagine that's by design. What's the coaching point on the lefty drop for the righty quarterback?
Just parts of their action. Guards are pulling where our backs are going. It's, you got to be able to move both ways. And I'd rather him move to the left and throw left-handed, but he can't do that yet. So he's got to turn around. But you try to balance everything out. So you just don't want to be one-dimensional. So yeah, it's probably easier to go to the right, but once you get used to doing it both ways, it ends up being the same.
What are your coaching points for your wide receivers
when they line up, seeing what happened to the KC Buffalo game. How do you coach him on that? What's your expectation for them and the refs? And did you learn something from that play?
That's just how football always is. As soon as it's broke, the wideout's got to sprint and get lined up as fast as they can. Sometimes the receiver doesn't have the ball set, so they guess where it is. They put their foot there, they check with the ref, and then they move on with their life. Then there's a motion or something like that, but that's why you got to get up there, get set, look to the ref. Usually he gives you a thumbs up or something, and then you go on.
Your 2016 offense on paper seems like it might be your best. You've got 5 top 5s. How does this one compare to that and the best offenses you've had?
I'm not sure sure at all with the numbers. I would assume they're close, and we're still not done with this year yet, so I don't know. But it's got a chance to be like that.
Regarding that, I know this is not a perfect comparison because Matt Ryan was where he was in his career and other differences, but the fact that Brock is in his second season with you and Matt was in his second season with you, are there similarities in now what they can do, their understanding of the offense, what they can see within the offense now that they have more reps?
Yeah, everybody gets better with reps. Matt was a lot more comfortable the second year, definitely, than the first year. But I think one thing that was harder for Matt is that, I think I got there his 8th year, and he had played for like 6 different coordinators. So there's a lot of more football in his head. So like you go through stuff, and Brock was a pretty clean slate. So it was Brock was always just doing the offense and learning and reacting and playing like he's always played. It's different when you do a lot more schemes before you get with someone.
In the first matchup with Arizona, they played tempo and a non-2-minute drill against your defense, and it seemed to have some effect. Do you guys practice up-tempo? Have you considered changing the tempo and with all the weapons you have, maybe trying to play fast in the middle of a game as opposed to just a 2-minute drill?
Yeah, we used to do that all the time. 2016, that we did that probably as much as anyone. We do it sometimes when we think it's effective. We don't feel like we like what we're doing right now, but it doesn't mean that we want to do it. I think we have done it a couple times this year. It just hasn't been that obvious because we don't stay in it too long. But we have a whole turbo package that we can go to at any time. It's just a couple of words, and we're capable of running our offense on the line of scrimmage anytime too. So I feel like we haven't done it in a month, but we've always mixed it randomly into games, just not enough for you guys to notice.
Yeah, 2 more. Barrows and Branch.
Please, Barrows, I want your
Better last anyway.
Now there's only one more.
One more arm question. Brock missed a couple of deep throws in week 2 in LA. Do you think that is kind of related to what you were describing? Just maybe throws that he wouldn't miss, now.
I don't, but could be. They weren't easy throws. I remember the one in LA. He had to go all the way across the board to Debo, and just missed him on a post. But no, I don't think that had to do with arm fatigue. Those are the few he hasn't hit.
2 quick minutia questions. It may be lame, but
Probably.
when you guys audible and guys touch their helmet, like why is that the thing to touch their helmet? And then the motion.
That's pretty lame.
Oh, well, this could be worse. The motion where often McCaffrey or Debo will loop back around the quarterback. They'll go in motion, but then loop back around. That seems newish, or not. And what's the idea behind that?
No, we started. I think the first time we did it was 2019. Yeah, the idea is just: is it slot? Is it trips? Is it pro? Is it 2-back? Is he going back into 2-back? Is he going across? Some people have calls out of 2x2, then the defense changes to 3x1, then it's empty, then it's back to. It makes it hard on the defense, and you just try to balance everything out, and we just letting everyone know we're on the same page, changing our play. We used to go like this, and it was a little too drastic, so we just made it simpler in this, and I think some people do this. It's just whatever you decide. All right, guys.